on a rescue boat right now with Orange County firefighters, and we want to show you what we're seeing because it's certainly devastating to look at, and it's a lot to wrap your heads around. Right now we're in an Orla Vista neighborhood, and it's just covered with water. All you got to do is take a look around here to really see the impact here. A lot of these shelves that were once filled with food, now they're just going empty. We've only got about a quarter of a tank to fill, so our pain at the pump won't be nearly as bad as folks who hold off as long as they can. I want to point us to that yellow house in the distance. That's where sheriff's deputies tell me is the St. Johns River line. So you can imagine the flooding from Nicole pushed it over the edge and brought the water here. The good news, though, is I'm told that the fire here is mostly contained, and that's what we're seeing, too. But we are seeing heavy smoke, and that's because firefighters are still actively putting out hot spots. Now those people's homes are virtually inside out. Their belongings are out on their front lawns. They're salvaging what they can, throwing out the rest. And as you can see, the cleanup is far from over.
It's going to mildew.
Sorting through a household of memories is a lot to unpack, not just physically.
I did save our family quilt, so that was nice. That was the only thing I was able to save out of my grandma's hope chest.
Barbara Vola's home flooded post-Hurricane Ian. She says the water started rising Thursday evening, sticking around through Friday night. She shows us how high it went out in her back room.
And I was slogging through that Thursday night.
When you've lost just about everything, the sentimental things hold such value. Those are the hardest to lose.
It's just overwhelming to lose so many things. And so many things that can't be replaced, like my mom's pictures.
The storm even took Barbara's beloved banana tree. She brought it from her old place when she moved here in 2015. She says her home wasn't in a flood zone then. She learned a few years later that changed when the maps were redrawn. But growing up in Florida, living through her share of hurricanes here, she didn't see the need for flood insurance.
This is unprecedented. Nobody could have foreseen this.
Barbara says the insurance adjuster came out yesterday and determined it's all flood damage. They won't cover a thing, not even the $50,000 kitchen remodel she just finished in April. So she's trying to make the most of it, salvaging what she can, grateful for help from loved ones along the way.
You do what you have to do, and you get through.
Barbara says she's applied for a disaster loan and that a friend of hers even set up an online fundraiser to help her out through all of this. She says she's staying with some friends in the meantime, staying at their house as she figures out what's next. Reporting live in New Smyrna Beach, Rebecca Turco, Spectrum News. And I'm told the food bank's trucks actually go through more than 2,100 gallons of diesel a week for those food pickups. And at more than $5.19 or so a gallon, those extra costs are adding up fast. With around 800 grocery store pickups every week, Second Harvest Food Bank burns a lot of gas to put out 250,000 meals every day.
For a nonprofit budget, that stretches it really, really far in terms of what we're able to do.
Greg Higgerson is the food bank's chief development officer. He says their diesel costs are now more than $11,000 a week, up by around 20% in just the past few weeks. On top of that, food prices are up and more people are needing help.
It's still a very high need, and we expect that to continue to climb as prices go up. People are at that tipping point.
The food here gets picked up by hundreds of food pantries, soup kitchens, and the like.
Hey, Dennis.
Places like Servant's Heart Ministry. Volunteers bag and deliver food to some 200 families every week. Executive Director Chip Hanna says their gas costs have doubled over the past few months.
You know, there's times at night where I wonder, okay, is this going to be the time where we're not going to be able to continue the ministry going?
Still, Chip is optimistic. He says they'll switch to every other week deliveries if need be to save on gas and still get the food out there. As for Greg, he knows no matter how tight their budget gets, they'll make it work. He says they have to because the need for this help is just too high.
Our need is insignificant compared to the needs of about 500,000 people who are trying to get to work. They're trying to make it work financially, but they're just a little bit short of that. And this situation with fuel prices doesn't help.
And on top of everything, Greg says they are also dealing with added fuel surcharges when it comes to food that's being delivered from outside of Central Florida. Reporting live in Seminole County, I'm Rebecca Turco, Spectrum News 13. They're concerned it's going to deter people from going solar with one less economic incentive. Now, many who have wanted to go solar are rushing to do it now to try and get grandfathered in. It's a hands-on process, installing solar panels.
Down, down, down.
Things can get pretty loud. But inside, Rachel Beveridge welcomes the clanging, even working from home.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
That's because Rachel is excited to have a house that'll run on clean energy. She and her husband had been considering solar for a while. This new pool was a pushing point. They wanted a way to heat it year-round without breaking the bank.
Then it turned into, well, the math backed up why we should continue on, and so now we're doing the whole house in solar.
She says the timing couldn't be better. That's because state legislators recently passed a bill allowing utility companies to offer rooftop solar users less money for energy. Right now, those users get the full retail rate for any excess energy they send back to the grid. That means they can bank that energy as credits to use later, the chance to net zero their bills year-round. But if this measure becomes law, the payback rate would gradually decline. Solar contractor Brad Lowndes says hitting net zero would be a no-go.
It's a typical example of the power companies honestly saying, do as I say, not as I do. Because they can build power plants, but we can't benefit from the free energy that we pull out of the grid.
Supporters argue this ensures those who can't afford solar aren't subsidizing those who have it. If the governor signs off, solar users can get grandfathered in for another 20 years if their panels are up and running before 2024. That's when the payback rate would start to decline. Rachel's just glad she got it now.
We've been able to capitalize when it's, the most perks.
Florida Power and Light is a major supporter of this bill. The utility company sent us a statement saying net metering rules should be modernized to make solar energy more equitable for all Floridians. Adding, quote, this legislation would take an important step toward balancing the costs of solar expansion here in the state. All of these people here, they don't want us going back to a pre-Roe v. Wade time, and that's also the concern of a local woman I spoke with earlier. She remembers that time all too well.
The court, in today's opinion, it said no.
Watching coverage of the Supreme Court's decision, Gail Gardner just can't believe it. She remembers hearing about back alley abortions as a teen. She was in her mid-20s when Roe v. Wade passed, and now
I'm just floored today because I can see a deeper, bigger picture of how this can weigh on a woman.
Gail benefited from Roe v. Wade. She says she had an abortion in her early 30s when she was divorcing her husband, preparing to be a single mom with her youngest just a toddler.
It was a lifesaver for me.
Gail says she wants women to have a choice, to have the right to make whatever decision is best for them.
I don't understand it, how we got to this place, but I've watched it since the 60s. I've watched everything that move along through these years, but we didn't think this would move like that.
Now, abortion rights will be determined by states going forward, unless Congress acts. Here in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis signed a new abortion law back in April, banning most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The only exceptions if it would save the mother's life or prevent serious injury to them. No exceptions for cases of rape, incest, or human trafficking. And today the governor said he wants to expand anti-abortion laws.
And it's so hard to believe.
Gail is a survivor herself. More than 30 years ago, she was raped in her Orlando home by a man dubbed the Malibu Rapist. Now she's worried what'll happen if state lawmakers try to make Florida's abortion laws stricter or ban it altogether. She doesn't want us going back to back alley abortions.
It makes it all a nightmare. I just hate that.
Meanwhile, this rally here is starting to get underway as we speak. Keep it here for the very latest. Reporting live in Orlando, Rebecca Turco, Spectrum News.